item we have regarding the friction. And now in this chapter we will be having the clear picture regarding the friction and how it opposes the motion of an object and what is the reason behind it and what are the causes of this friction. Now let us see the force of friction. What do you mean by the force of friction? That is, friction itself is exhibiting some force on the object. Now let us see some practical examples. For example, let us take a ball falling down on a banana cliff, right? Banana cliff, then he will be just skidding on that banana cliff, right? And he will be falling down. That is what? Because he is unable to maintain his stability by standing by himself, because his force of standing himself is becoming less when compared to the sliding force which is increased by the banana strike. Now we will be seeing one more example, that is bicycle. If you are running at a high speed, the bicycle or a vehicle or anything, you will be suddenly stopping it by using of brakes, right? That means these brakes are producing or opposing the force of movement of bicycle or car or any vehicle. That means these brakes are exhibiting the opposing force such as the frictional force. For example, let us take one example such as the practical example. Let us assume this duster is placed on this table. Now I am trying to move this duster with the help of my hand. Now if at all I apply some force, as previously we said, force and pressure are applied on a surface in order to move it from rest position, right? Then now here I am applying the force on this duster which is in stationary position. Now this duster, I have applied force and it is moved, right? That means how much movement it has taken. That means again it came to the stationary position, right? First here it is stationary, again from here it came to the another rest position. That means from the movement to rest it attains, right? That means for some extent my force, what I kept with my hand, it has been made that object to move. But now again let us try to move this object by giving the force in opposite direction. That means I am keeping the force in the opposite direction and let us see how it moves. See, it attains, that means it has passed some direction and again it came to the rest position. From this experiment you can say that whether you apply the force on the object from left side or from right side, you will be observing that the object is moving per certain position and attaining again the rest position, right? So you can say that some force is acting opposite to this force what I have applied in the right side, so that it is coming to the rest position after some moment, right? If at all I apply on the right side also, it is moving for some position, again it is attaining the rest position. That means some opposite force is acting on the left side. From this we can conclude that even if I apply force on left side or right side, there is opposing force or vice versa, that is right and left side, that is the force known as frictional force. I hope you are clear with this frictional force which is acting on the surfaces of the objects. Now this frictional force coming to picture when an object is in contact with other object. That means there should be a physical contact. That is, for example, let us take this duster. This is in contact, that is the outermost surface of this duster is in contact with the table. That is the table's outermost surface, right? So now this frictional force has come into the picture. When I want to expel or when I want to push this duster forward, some opposing force is maintained by the table which is in contact with the duster. Thus, this frictional force opposes the movement of the duster. In the same way, let us see the definition of the frictional force. That is, frictional force opposes the relative motion between the surface of the book and the table or duster and table. What I have taken the example. That means it is just the opposing force. I hope you are very clear with the frictional force. And the frictional forces are various types of forces. Let us take, as this universe, some objects are at stationary or at rest because of this force. That means if you take, for example, let us take this pen, when we throw upwards, it is falling down, right? That is because by the gravitational force which is exhibited by the earth, that is the gravity of force which is in itself making the objects to be stationary without revolving around in the atmosphere, right? Now, again these stationary objects are at rest, that means they are at zero speed, right? Why this is because of the frictional force acting which is on the contact with the object. These two forces, this frictional force and the gravitational force, these two forces are coming into picture in order to make the objects to be in stationary, that is to be at rest. Now let us see other term, that is friction, and what are the factors affecting the friction. Do you know what are the factors affecting friction? What are the causes or reasons behind this friction? That is, first one is surface irregularities. Do you see in rough areas such as on the roads or on the mountains, there are stones and all things, you will be seeing that the surface is very rough. On the smooth roads, you will be going as fastly and as smoothly as possible. On the rough areas, it takes up and downs for your vehicles, right? And you will also be jumping in the buses if at all there will be sudden brakes also. Now, here you can see this surface irregularities coming into picture. That is, if at all observe that there is a surface irregularity between two surfaces. Let us assume this is as a road. Now there is surface irregularity. Surface irregularities means there is up and downs in the surface of the road. Here I am bringing one car. Assume this as a car. Now here I am bringing this car in contact with the road. Now because of this contact between the car and the irregular surfaces, the frictional force which is acting here will hold down the cars. That means it takes more time to move from these irregularities. So that's why we will be taking up and downs and more time to move around the irregular roads. Okay, and this is the cause or this is the effect that is because of the friction, and this is the major effect of friction. Now let us see some examples such as a brick pulled by spring balance. If you take a spring balance, for example, this is a spring balance, right? And you are tying some bricks to this, and you are tying some bricks on this spring balance. Assume this as spring balance. Now these are bricks. If you are tying some bricks to this spring balance, you will be seeing that some force is exerted. That means first the spring will be at some zero position like this simply. Right? Now after giving some weight on this, such as if you add on the bricks, the spring length will be extended. That means it will be extended. First the original position at rest is like this. After that the spring will be extended. That means the extended or the elasticity property of the spring is shown here because of the addition of weight. That is because of the frictional force which is exhibited internally. Now let us see another example. Push on the box to keep moving. That means previously what we have discussed, that is the duster and the table. When you push on it, if I am applying some force on this, it will move to some extent. If another person, that means two persons are applying the force, it moves more fast and more distance. That means we will be saying that larger force applying on the objects will lead to the movement of the object. That means if at all see this is an object. One person is applying the force, it moves to certain distance, right? And two more persons are applying the force on this object simultaneously at the same time, then it moves more distance and at very high speed. This is known as the fact. This is known as what? More force, more movement, right? Here the frictional force which is acting will be decreased because for an object which is in rest position, assume this is in rest, the force acting on it is equal to the frictional force. By seeing this activity, you will be observing that so many persons is adding the force, right? So the frictional and this force which are in balanced condition will become unbalanced, and therefore this object moves very fastly to some longer distance. So by this we can say that the factors affecting friction can be made low by applying more force. Now let us see one more term, that is friction, a necessary evil. What do you mean by friction, a necessary evil? That is, let us take three examples in order to understand that. Striking a matchstick. If you observe take second example, that is a nail is fixed in wall due to friction. That is, if at all you hit some nail on the wall of a box, then it is holding its position, right? It is not moving down. That is because the hole what is generated in the wall is fixing up this nail. That means the surfaces of the nail and the hole are in contact and they are attaining the friction. So it is holding. That means it is standing up in the position. Now let us take one more example, that is soles of the shoes wear out. That is simple because you can observe that your shoes after some days it will be tear and wear and all those things. Because why? That is because the frictional force exhibited by the roads or the surface on which you are walking, it makes the shoes to wear and tear. Even you take the tires of the vehicles, it will be wear and tear for some days because of the frictional force acting on the roads. That is frictional force acting in liquids. That is simple. The force which is exhibited or which opposes the motion of the liquids is said to be the frictional force, that is known as viscous force. That is, if at all I take water are flowing from a high place, then the viscous force will be less. They will be flowing very fastly. If at all I take oil or anything, if you observe, oil will be moving. Let us take this is the oil. Oil will be moving very slowly. It is very dense, having a high density. So it having a less viscous forces. That means previously we have learned regarding the friction and the causes of friction. Now let us see what are the factors that is included in the friction. That means if at all how the friction is increased and how the friction is reduced. By what factors we can increase the friction? That is simply by, if you take a practical example, if you are moving in a car or in a bicycle, when you are going at a high speed, then suddenly you will be giving one brakes, right? These brakes automatically makes you to come into a rest position, right? From the moving position to rest position. That is what, because of the brakes which are applying the frictional force indirectly on the wheels of the bicycle. That is because these brakes are not in contact with the wheels of the bicycle, but still these are applying the frictional force on them. That is how, because these brakes are indirectly connected to the wheels with the help of the ring, and therefore this frictional force is acting and thus we will be stopping. This is the major or good example how to increase the friction of the objects. Now let us see how to reduce the friction. For example, let us take one more practical example. If you are playing kabaddi, right, the opposite person who is coming to catch you will be wiping out his hands. Why? Because in order to develop the frictional force. By the increasing of friction on his hands, he can hold you very fastly, right? That's why he will be using that. And at the same time, he will be applying some oil on his body in such a way that the opponent group should not catch him, right? By applying the oils or by applying any soft components on the surface of the body, it makes the reduction in the friction, that is known as reduce, because they can't hold very fastly, it will be slipped off. And let us take one more example for reducing of friction, that is when you are playing on a carom board, right? Carom board, if you play caroms, you will be applying some powder in order to smoothen the surface of the carom board, right? That is because the surface will be tending to smoothness, that is you are reducing the frictional force acting on the board, and thus the points will be moved very fastly and very